Greetings, YouTube. As I record this, protesters in Egypt are desperately trying to bring down their government, a essential dictatorship that has been in power for 30 years, and I wish them the best of luck. In an attempt to stop this popular uprising, the government has essentially shut off the internet in Egypt, which is, to my mind, a really poor choice of tactics, because Egypt is a major tourist attraction. There isn't a lot in Egypt for people to show up and do except tour around a lot of the classical ruins, which they won't be able to do if they can't book travel. So I'm thinking that this particular move may give them a sense of short-term security, but long-term, it's going to hurt them. But one of the things it has me thinking about is alternate forms of communication. And one of the first things I thought of when I heard they flicked the switch and turned off the internet was ham radio. Now, a lot of people out there have probably never heard of ham radio. The word ham stands for Home Amateur Magazine, which was a early 20th century electronics magazine that dealt with people that were into hobbies, the early hackers, in the sense of people who hacked technology together. This was the kind of magazine that they read. And ham radio became popular because it allowed people from all over the world to communicate to each other for free, other than the investment in the equipment. And you had specific frequencies that you were allowed to broadcast on, and you still are allowed to broadcast on. And getting a license is not difficult to do. In America, you have to take a course, and that's about it. You pass the course, you get a license, you buy yourself some equipment, and you can broadcast to anywhere. But I have a personal connection to ham radio. Now, I've never owned a ham radio. I've never really wanted to. The idea is kind of intriguing, but I'm an apartment dweller, and being an apartment dweller and having to slap a really large antenna on the outside of my building is kind of impractical. If I ever become a homeowner, which I'm hoping to do, I may actually look into ham radio because they're very cool. But my connection is that I used to be involved in the making of the technology that allowed ham radios to function. I spent 8 years working for the Cushcraft Corporation, Cushcraft, Cushcraft. This was named after Lester Cushman, the man who founded the company, and the Cushcraft Corporation manufactured, and I believe may still be in business, bought by someone else, but they manufacture antennas. Antennas that are small enough to easily fit on my screen this big, to antennas that had 40-foot booms, and the boom is the main portion of the antenna, and you run the elements perpendicular to them, and the elements are what let you pick up the radio frequencies. And the beautiful thing about these antennas is that the length of the antenna elements and the distance between the elements helps determine which kind of radio frequencies you can pick up with this antenna. So the physical structure of the antenna helps you define what kind of radio frequencies you can get. And we sold radio antennas for all kinds of enthusiasts, from people that were just getting into the hobby to people that were really into it seriously. I mean, if you're buying an antenna with a 40-foot long boom and it's going to be this big around, I mean, that boom is going to be this thick, it's aluminum tubing, you're a pretty serious ham radio operator. And we sold thousands and thousands of these things I worked it for 8 years, and the company was still functioned in that same under the same ownership for another decade, I think, before they got sold out. I haven't worked for the place in 13 or 14 years, I think. But it was nice knowing that what I did for a living helped people like Egyptian protesters from all over the world to communicate. There were times, particularly in places that are racked by storms, where antennas that I made that passed through my hands helped people stay alive. We had one island in the Caribbean that suffered a hurricane, and the only form of communication on that entire island was an antenna I made. It stayed up. It kept broadcasting all the way through the hurricane, and it was the only remaining form of communication on that island until they could get rescue vehicles there. Ships, planes, helicopters. We helped save people's lives. It was a pretty good feeling knowing that. That's something we intended to work. Surprisingly, worked. I didn't mind working there. It wasn't a bad company. The pay wasn't great. But at the time of my life, it kept me, in a house, an apartment. It kept me food on the table. It helped buy my first wife a car. Car I never drove. But the knowledge that through a very simple collection of aluminum and wires allowed people from all over the world to communicate fascinated me then, and it fascinates me now. Now, the demographic that uses ham radio isn't really the internet users for the most part. They're older, white males. It's a very, very conservative group in that regard. But it was nice knowing that we were helping them and that they did good work when it came to emergencies. They kept lines of communication open through storms and through blizzards and through all kinds of catastrophes. And I'm hoping that there are ham radio operators out there right now helping people in Egypt because they need it. And I'm sure that some of the antennas I made might still be out there working, and that's a cool idea. But it's good to know that I help people keep people in touch in an era before the internet. And the ham radio is still a viable communication method even today.